right, everyone, welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I'm your host, Josh Silvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand, where we help CEOs and founders get on top-rated podcasts. Definitely check out our new book, which is on Amazon, Top-Rated PR Book. We also have masterclasses. And if you also want to get on podcasts as well, you can definitely contact us at bookacall.com and definitely check us out. So today I have a very special guest speaker who I'd love to talk to and just really get more detailed information for, because she's a very high-end expert in a lot of different areas. She's just a 20-year experience in social impact landscape. She's a very experienced consultant for nonprofits and a government for basically nonprofits and for government leaders. So I'd like to introduce you guys to LaShonda Smith. Thanks for joining the show.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. So I guess for the audience here, because we have a lot of CEOs and founders who I guess want to kind of know a little bit more about you and what you do, could you just share with us like your backstory, like who you are and like how you got into that whole area of like just your experience? And gosh, I'm kind of curious too.
Well, thank you so much. Again, I'm LaShonda Smith. I am the CEO and founder of Crescendo Strategies Group, where we use strategic development to aid the social impact landscape. So that includes nonprofits, local governments, businesses for good, certified B Corps, and help them to identify their problems and build from there, knowing that if we're able to solve for problems, we're going to have a high return on investment. Yeah. And that same framework, I use that for public-private partnerships, and I serve as a strategic intermediary so that I am that go-between between the public, private, and nonprofit sectors to solve societal problems.
Wow.
So, it took me a little while to get to this point. And I always knew that I wanted to do and be impactful in local communities. And so I earned a master's in public administration. Wow. I worked for nonprofits. I worked in local government for a short time. And then I went into consulting for local governments with sales tax and property tax. So for those of you who may have remembered me from those days, hello, glad to see you again. Then I went on to complete a mid-career fellowship with the Moving Worlds Institute, where I was able to really drill down and hone in on some thoughts and feelings that I've been having for a very, very long time, knowing that I wanted to be able to be that bridge to solve societal problems. Wow. And from there, moved on and consulted for nonprofits for philanthropy. Wow. So helping with major campaigns for a number of organizations spanning many different sectors, from religious to healthcare to food banks, human services, you name it. I was able to touch a lot of different aspects. But it ultimately, I was able to realize that I couldn't try to turn every job I had into that dream unicorn role. So even when I was interacting with nonprofits or government leaders, I was always trying to find ways to partner with the public sector or the nonprofit sector or the nonprofit with government and to further their goals. But I understood that that wasn't necessarily the primary role that I had. Yeah. So I decided there was time to launch out and design the impact that I've always wanted. And that led me to Crescendo Strategies Group. And if you all have any musical knowledge, you know that crescendo is gradually becoming larger or louder. And so my goal is to amplify impact and in the work that I do by bridging those gaps and being able to communicate with those various sectors and having that background in all three sectors. So yes, that's what led me to this point.
Wow, that's amazing. I really appreciate, because I also have done a lot of nonprofits and worked with a lot of them for different social betterment things. And I really appreciate what you do. And I think it's really admirable, just like, you know, you've helped so many, I'm sure you've helped a lot of communities with building certain things. So, you know, I guess like for some people, you know, I think one of the things that we all kind of want to do, but we're always afraid to do, is get involved with nonprofits a bit. You know what I mean? So like we have like all these very businesses that we do in terms of making income for the organization and making sure our people get paid and other stuff like that. And, you know, I think there's a lot of people that actually really want to do the nonprofits and actually really want to get their feet wet with that and make an impact to their community, which not saying that the work that they're doing is not creating an impact, but they want to do a more of a an impact in their community. I guess for those people, like, what do you suggest for people like how to get involved with those nonprofits?
That is an amazing question. And I
Yeah.
found that to be true with a lot of the founders that I speak with, consult with. And I think it's important to understand that you don't have to silo yourself or you don't have to pigeonhole yourself. You can have various avenues to create impact. Your business does not have to forfeit profit for purpose. You can have a business for good. You can become a certified B Corp and adhere to a certain standards to ensure that the work that you are doing is not causing harm to those that you employ, to the planet, to others, consumers. So that's a way to do that. In addition to that, your organization can have a nonprofit arm, which is great. Your organization can also donate in it from itself and have its own nonprofit. And you personally, as a leader, can make sure that you are funding different organizations that you feel near and dear to. So when you're designing your impact, you can have various vehicles to get to that end result. It doesn't have to be a one and done thing. Find out what it is that you want your organization to support. Find out what it is that you would like to create a nonprofit for that would not be in conflict with your business. Right. And also find ways that you can personally donate and give of your time and your efforts to other organizations as well.
Yeah. I always find what's cool is that, this is just what I found. I don't know if you know this about me, but I've mentioned on the podcast where I've actually worked with, like, I used to work in like dental offices, chiropractic offices, and a lot of things the thing they do was interesting enough was they worked with a lot of nonprofits and actually like getting the community more together and more, coming to the actual offices, and that's how they actually found out about the community and nonprofit organizations, which was actually from the dental offices and chiropractic offices and just other places, which actually, I would have never found if I never worked in those offices. So I think that was a big bonus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's so many organizations that are doing so much good in the world. And sometimes, people can be a little afraid to support the smaller ones or the local ones, but the local ones really have a good handle of what's going on in your community. Mm-hmm. So seeking them out, finding ways that you can support them, you're really going to see a great return on your donations and donation of time and services.
Absolutely. So I guess with you, I kind of want to, because I'm very kind of curious of what this is. I don't know if a lot of people who are listening to this podcast know what this is, but I'd actually like to get your feedback on this. Is what is social impact? Like, what does that mean when we say social impact landscape? What does that entail?
So the social impact landscape is kind of ill-defined in a certain sense, but it's just creating vehicles that create good in the world. Mm-hmm. So being a part of the social impact landscape does not necessarily mean that you only work for a nonprofit, doesn't necessarily mean that you work for a religious institution. You can be a for-profit, you can be a nonprofit, and you can be a government employee. If your work is for the greater good, is for social advancement of community, then you are a part of the social impact landscape, which is great. So you can, again, design your impact in the way that you like. So there's so many people who identify with the social impact landscape that are from all sectors. So, yeah.
Interesting. No, it's kind of cool because, like, I can see a lot of people in, companies, they don't really call it that, but they sort of just do it anyways as part of it. It was just sort of like a named thing that people couldn't talk about, and now they actually can talk about because it's just like,
it's really, really something that people should speak up more about. Whether it's your CSR that you have as a company or as your ESG that you have as a company, it's something that you should really speak about. It's going to help you connect with your consumers. There are consumers out there who are very conscious of how they want to spend their dollars, and they want to connect with businesses who are also conscious in how they are conducting business. So I would definitely admonish all business owners to promote that. If there's a particular set of guidelines or ordinances that you all follow as an organization, promote it. If you are a certified B Corp, promote it. If you're part of the 1% for the planet, promote it. people want to hear that and they want to see that that you care. And it's going to be a really great drawing point for your consumer base.
Right. And so I guess for people, I guess for you, because you've probably, I don't know if you deal with new business owners, or I'm sure like people have been around. How do new people get involved in that? Like, I know there's just so many different ways to get them to kind of contact you, but I guess what do you find is the easiest way to connect and actually be a partner with them?
The easiest way for me to partner and connect with folks is really that one-on-one call, those great little 30-minute sessions, which I offer for free. I love that. I love just talking with people, because one thing I found to be true is that not all good advice is good advice for you.
Right.
So you need something that's going to be customized to where you are, what you want to do. And I love being able to kind of sit back and say, okay, this is where we are. This is the direction we'd like to go in. And I would like to recommend these options for you to explore. So to your point, because it's so vast, it's so easy to get lost and not be quite sure of which direction to go into. But having someone who is familiar with the landscape and can kind of give you that roadmap would be most ideal. So I love speaking with folks, whether they have a concept, if they just launched a nonprofit, or if they just launched a business and they're just finding out that, hey, this isn't sufficient enough for the vision that I have, and I'm thinking about having a nonprofit arm as well. Love talking to those folks who are already established and need to expand their impact. Would love to speak to them as well. So there's just so much out there. So I think it would be best just to book a call with me.
Yeah, it's cool. So I guess because I know everyone's around the world and they all have companies different places. What are some of your favorite nonprofits that you've worked with, or that you think you've connected so many people with that they kind of were just like, wow, like they're just so incredible. I got to connect more people with them.
Let's see here.
I know it's probably a lot.
It is a lot to think about. I'm a little biased, of course, to my family's organization, Trinity Unlimited Outreach. They are based in Compton, California. My grandparents moved from Texas after the Korean conflict, after my grandfather served in the Navy, and they came to California to explore new opportunities. And when they set down roots in Compton, California. My family has a childcare center that services families. So it grew from a family home type of daycare center to a full-on facility. So we aid those from 6 weeks all the way through school age, after school care. And I'm looking forward to some great things that are going to be happening in 2025 with them. But being able to connect with families, offer those services, be that support system. It's been in the community since 2001 in the childcare center. So we've seen the economic downturns, budget impasses from California, COVID, and being able to weather that and still be able to support families, super important. So I had to put the plug in for my family, but other organizations that are really great, I would say CAP-OC in Orange County, they serve, and that's where I am based in Orange County, California. They serve a large population and often overlooked. Orange County is associated with opulence and wealth and just abundance, right? So people don't assume that there is much need, but there is. And those types of organizations that kind of are able to help out the community, the local community people, and partner with businesses and partner with other organizations to ensure that people have wraparound services to deal with their whole person. Is what is really, really inspiring to me. So those and I've worked with so many organizations in various states as well that really understand that what their original model was for. Maybe they were a food bank, or maybe they offered health care, but realizing that it's not siloed. Who we are as people, we're so interconnected, and we have to address problems holistically in order to elevate people as a whole. So I just love working with organizations that get that.
Right. Is there like, when you have companies that try to work with them, but maybe they find it like hard, very difficult to connect and actually work with, what do you find business have the hardest time with in connecting and partnering with other people like that? Like in terms of like getting people to actually work with nonprofits? Like, what do you find is the difficulty that people have with it?
I think business has its own language.
Yes.
Government has its own language and processes and procedures, and nonprofits have its own language, processes, and procedures. And for good reason. Businesses are responsible to their stakeholders and their customer base. Government is responsible to their constituents that live there, those voting residents there. And we have, and laws that are in place, nonprofits, they're the people that they serve, and also their donor base. So because they have that, it can come across as having competing interests. And it's not necessarily the case. So once we're able to kind of get over the hurdle of this is going to be different than how you typically do business, and this is not going to be a business transaction, that is, I think, where we're able to find alignment. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, we know private sector moves a lot quicker, can kind of turn on a dime in certain instances, and other times not so much, but they're able to move and they're a little more agile than we would say for government. Yeah. And there's a reason for that. And I think if everyone's able to understand and respect the vantage points and to whom they are responsible to, it makes it a lot easier for people to come together. And so with that, I think they need to be open to having that conversation and from the onset and saying, hey, these are the goals. And everyone agrees on those goals. And then here are some concerns. And I think that's where I kind of fit in as that strategic intermediary to be able to, let's find that safe space for everybody to kind of air out concerns from the onset. Let's find solutions to those problems. And then let's create a project timeline that works well for everyone and keeps us all on pace and keeps the ball moving. So I think that's one of the main things when we're dealing with business owners.
Yeah. What do you find is the key factor in actually closing the deal between a partnership with a nonprofit and a business? Like, what do you think is the most vital thing that they both, I would say maybe both of them should have in order to actually, okay, now they're working together. They're actually one team.
One of the key things is mission alignment. We have to start there. Sometimes people want to do something good and they have an idea. So they're like, oh, I'm going to go to this nonprofit and I'm going to tell them what we want to do. Opposed to saying, hey, we love what you're doing here. We want to support you. Or this is an issue that we as an organization have identified as something that is important to us. And we want to solve for this problem when we know that you're already boots on the ground. So let's would you be open to coming together so that we can solve this problem and move forward? So I think that's one of the main things that they can honestly do is just come in and be open to hearing from those folks who already have boots on the ground so that they can come in and come together and find that alignment.
Yeah. I think that's so important to what you mentioned about how people need to have the same mission. Like I was going over one of my, I believe it was my last episode where, your mission statement is such a vital thing when you have people who work together with the same mission and purpose of driving something. Like, I don't know, I'm going to give an example like, oh, we want to clear the planet of plastic. I don't know, whatever that is, and right. They both have the same mission and goals. And that's how actually people can get things done is by having that same mission and they're all connecting together with that same mission. So I think that's super important.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes the goal may seem lofty or may seem kind of out of reach, and it's okay. It's okay. Mm-hmm. It starts, we have to start somewhere, and right. If that's your goal of ridding the planet of plastics, okay, how can we come together? That's right. where the private sector comes in with their innovation and their ability to, and you know what? There's so much innovation within the other sectors as well, but it's not necessarily as promoted. So I think when you're able to find that space for innovation and people can come together, amazing solutions can come of it.
Yeah. What do you find is the most common nonprofit in obviously, I don't know if you've been everywhere, but what do you find is the most common nonprofit organization in each state, let's say, or even in the same states? What do you find is most common nonprofit you've run into or you've worked with even?
You know what? It's so funny because as soon as you said it, I thought about a study that comes out annually in terms of their philanthropic revenue and I see a pie chart in my mind and I don't want to misquote it. So I'm not quite sure if human services would be the largest piece of the pie in terms of types of organizations, but I would venture to guess human services is pretty up there.
Yeah. That would make sense because I would kind of see how that would help not only the nonprofit organization, but also the company or business that they're trying to connect with. So I find that I think that's very useful. And I think that's very important to have because, it's like you look around you and we have so many things going on around the world and we need kind of that open arm support with each other. And I think with businesses, like you mentioned before, like they have one goal and a nonprofit has another goal and you're trying to get them to align with each other. So that way they actually have the same goal. So it's kind of funny. You're like a goal aligner, if that makes sense.
Try to be, and you know what? And two, there could be other points of alignment later down the road. It does. Yeah. Maybe when you talk initially, you find out that maybe we're not the organization you need to speak with, but there is organization ABC up the road that does this work that aligns here. And maybe we can come in a little later in the project when you guys are addressing this particular piece of the project. So there's so much alignment that can happen in multiple points over time. So
that's
being
great.
open to that is really important.
Awesome. So now I know I want to kind of dive into this next one here, but with you're as an expert consultant in just like with nonprofits and government leaders, I guess for like, how would you get to know that? How do you know what the actual right person is, like in terms of a government leader? Like how do you know you should work with that person, or like how does that all work? I'm just kind of curious.
That's That's a very, very interesting question. One thing with government, and I'm going to promote the administration side because I have public admin master's opposed to public policy. Yeah. So I think a lot of times when people think about working with local government and working with city government, automatically they think the mayor. Nothing wrong with connecting the mayor. That is, you need that type of support and you need that type of alliance to further your mission and goals. But there's also a whole city of administrators that do amazing work. And they are the ones who are actually implementing programs. So if you want to do something in terms of housing or affordable housing or something to that effect, it's important that you get in touch with the economic development director of that city, who may also be covering housing. Maybe it's the city planner. You may want to get in touch with them. The city manager, of course, would be a great person to speak with. So understanding where it is that you want to work in terms of your projects that you are looking ahead towards, and then going on that city website, looking at city administration and determining who those folks are and reaching out to them and saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. I would love to know if there's some alignment. Do you guys have this within your plan? They have, often they do 20, 25-year plans. Maybe you want to look it up and you can download and research it and be able to reference it and seeing that this is where you guys want to be in the next 5 years. This is how we would love to align with you all and partner. This is what we're doing. We're looking at this particular parcel. Would love to know how zoning works for that area. But engage in conversation with city administration.
Right.
I can't.
I was going to ask too, because that actually dropped another question for me too, which is a good point actually. What do you think with, for CEOs and founders who want to get involved with nonprofits? Like, I guess first off, when is the best time to actually do it? Like, it's like, there's always a point where, their CEOs and founders are main focus. I want to grow. I want to make money. I want to grow and grow and grow. When do you think is the appropriate time to actually connect with a nonprofit? Like, do you think, is there an actual time, do you think, involved in that? Or do you think, is that something like they should do right away or wait along or?
I think it should be embedded in company culture from the onset, if possible. And if not, adopt it quickly. And from there, you can determine to what degree that you guys have the capacity to engage with a nonprofit. It could be implementing a policy that says, hey, we're going to give 10 hours to our employees to volunteer. Free, they can go and they can take time off using 10 hours a year. Or if it's implementing programs within the company and saying, hey, we're going on MLK Day, Day of Service, we are going to participate in this walk, and we would love for you all to engage with us and participate in this way. Making it a part of company culture makes it easier and it doesn't feel as forced. Doesn't mean that it cannot be implemented later, but if you have the choice, I would say implement it from the onset.
Yeah, I think it's a good tool to have, especially someone who can back you up in that same mission. I think that's so important. So in people connecting, like if they want to choose, like, because I know you're the expert in the area, right? Is there's always probably in everyone's mind, there's probably a set of questions they probably want to ask them in terms of actually starting the whole relationship or even just starting the conversation with them. What questions would you ask? Like if people are listening to this and they want to know what type of questions you would ask for a nonprofit, what would be the questions that you would ask to kind of make sure they're the right fit for you and they're the right people to work with, if that makes sense?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it would be good to ask them what their needs are. And it can span from philanthropic needs. It could also include, maybe it's just solution based. If you're a tech company, maybe it's something that you guys can do really rather quickly and you can volunteer some time there and just kind of help them out. Ask them, what is your need? We love if you've already identified them as an organization because you love their mission and what they're doing in the community. From there, ask them what their need is. And then from there, you can take it and say, okay, you can look back and think about how exactly you want to involve yourself as an organization. And then, like any other type of contract, you can have a professional service agreement between the two of you or in-kind donations where you're giving of services and you can outline what it is. So I think it's important to already have in mind what it is that you are willing to give. If it's the time, if it's philanthropy, if it's services, or a combination of all three, have that in mind first and then be ready to ask them what their need is and then ask them if it would be helpful if we could offer these things. In addition to that, I think when you're having those conversations, you'll be able to spot which organization leaders are savvy and ready to go and which ones may be a little overwhelmed by the thought of you coming in to help. And even with those, it doesn't mean that you can't help them, but maybe not to the degree that you thought that you were going to come in with big, lofty ideas and goals. So I think it's really important to kind of just really have that conversation, but by starting with what do you need? I think that's like the baseline. And then from there, if you want to dig deeper, take kind of the methodology of the 5 whys or just kind of dig a little deeper into why they may need that particular thing and seeing where you guys can find some alignment there. I think that would be a great first step.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I do totally appreciate that. I guess for my one of these questions here, could you just share with me also a really cool success that you've had in terms of your company, like what you've done? Because I know you've said a lot, but is there one particular that you want to share that just was like, wow, so impactful for the world or for yourself?
Oh man. Let's see here. That's such a good question. I would say one of my favorite, and it's not necessarily with me as Crescendo, because Crescendo Strategies Group just launched in April.
Nice.
So I'm going to reference another project that I did. Actually, it was a few years ago that comes to mind. It was with a big stadium that was being built in Southern California. And if you guys know what big stadiums were recently built, you can kind of think about that. But it was so great to see a community that I have long admired that has been through some really tough times in terms of economics, be selected for the site of this large stadium, and me being able to work with the general contractor of that stadium and all of their subs to ensure that they were participating in a particular program offered by the state to allow for sales direct use tax to go directly to the city opposed to it going countywide. I'm not going to get into the technicalities because that's when people's eyes start glossing over, and I get it. But it was more money to come back into the city. But I was able to work with city government. I was able to work with the prime contractor and their subs, and just kind of walking them through the simple process of, hey, this is what I need from you. This is what I'm identifying. Or if there were some unintentional errors that were made, being able to kind of reach out to them and say, hey, we need to correct this so we ensure that the city is getting as much as they can. So that was one of the things that kind of stands out to me, because just to see how impactful it would be economically for that city and for the resources, because as we know, taxes are the basis of what communities can offer, what cities can offer their community. So that funds programs, that funds jobs, that funds city parks. So many different things can come of that. And it's not just like, oh, a stadium is being built, but there's just so much more additional impact. Increase of property values for those folks who migrated here from different places, who are often redlined and had to live in certain areas of that particular city, being able to see their property values skyrocket just because that was there. So just understanding that and seeing that in that way is something that I'll never forget.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time. I really appreciate the questions that you've answered. And I really love the fact what you do is like amazing, because, you know, I'm a very, socialized person who loves to help people in many different areas between life, livingness, their business, everything. So I really appreciate the time that you've taken to talk to me about it, and love to get that I got your feedback on that. And I guess before we end here, I would love to just, you know, help people who are listening here to kind of know who you, like, just kind of better know you and where to find you. So would you mind telling us, like, where can people find you and locate you and talk to you if they want to chat with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can reach out to me at crescendostrategiesgroup.com.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you're big on LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. You can search me, LaShonda Smith, and I would love to connect with you. And from there, we can definitely book a call.
Awesome. Well, LaShonda, I really appreciate the time you've given us and given me to actually interview you. I really appreciate you coming on the show. And of course, I think,
Josh, I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And of course, guys, I really appreciate you guys that are listening to us. And if you guys like this type of stuff, you can definitely like and subscribe to this channel. And definitely, if you guys want to come on the podcast, you can definitely reach out to me at josh@commandyourbrand.com. And of course, if you guys want to check out a new book, we have other services, check out our website, www.commandyourbrand.com. And of course, thank you all for joining us, and have a good one. And thank you, LaShonda, for joining me.
Thank you so much.